to each other. Panchakalpadrubhyascha kripa sindhu bhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So Srila Prabhupada, can you give him ask him if you read English, Krishna? Okay. So Srila Prabhupada, today we're starting with chapter 21, the gopis attracted by the flute. With the arrival of the beautiful autumn season, the waters in the lake and rivers became as clear as crystal and filled with fragrant lotus flowers, and breezes blew very pleasantly. At that time, Krishna entered the forest of Vrindavan with the cows and cowherd boys. Krishna was very much pleased with the atmosphere of the forest, where flowers bloomed and bees and drones hummed very jubilantly, while the birds, trees, and plants were all looking very happy. Krishna, tending the cows and accompanied by Sri Balaram and the cowherd boys, began to vibrate his transcendental flute. After hearing the vibration of the flute of Krishna, the gopis in Vrindavan remembered him and began to talk amongst themselves about how nicely Krishna was playing his flute. When the gopis were describing the sweet vibration of Krishna's flute, they also remembered their pastimes with him. Thus their minds became disturbed, and they were unable to describe completely the beautiful vibration. While discussing the transcendental vibration, they remembered also how Krishna dressed, decorated with a peacock feather on his head, just like a dancing actor, and with blue flowers pushed over his ear. His garment glowed yellow gold, and he was garlanded with a Vaijayanti necklace. Dressed in such an attractive way, Krishna filled up the holes of his flute with the nectar emanating from his lips. So they remembered him entering the forest of Vrindavan, which is always glorified by the footprints of Krishna and his companions.
Krishna was very expert in playing the flute, and the gopis were captivated by the sound vibration, which was attractive not only to them but to all living creatures who heard it. One of the gopis said, One of the gopis told her friends, the highest perfection of the eyes is to see Krishna and Balarama entering the forest and playing the flutes and tending the cows with their friends. Persons who are constantly engaged in the transcendental meditation of seeing Krishna internally and externally by thinking of him playing the flute, entering the Vrindavana forest and tending the cows with the cowherd boys have really attained the perfection of samadhi. Samadhi, trance, means absorption of all the activities of the senses in a particular object, and the gopis indicate that the pastimes of Krishna are the perfection of all meditation and samadhi. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad-Gita that anyone who is always absorbed in the thought of Krishna is the topmost of all yogis.
Another gopi expressed her opinion that Krishna and Balaram, while tending the cows with the cowherd boys, appeared just like actors going to play on a dramatic stage. Krishna was dressed in glowing garments of yellow, Balaram in blue, and they held new twigs of mango tree, peacock feathers, and bunches of flowers in their hands. Dressed with garland of lotus flowers, they were sometimes singing very sweetly among their Friends, one gopi told her friends, how is it Krishna and Balaram are looking so beautiful? Another gopi said, my dear friends, I cannot even think of his bamboo flute. What sort of pious activity did it execute so that it is now enjoying the nectar of the lips of Krishna, which is actually the property of us gopis? Krishna sometimes kisses the gopis, therefore, the transcendental nectar of his lips is available only to them. So the gopis asked, how is it possible that the flute, which is nothing but a bamboo rod, is always engaged in enjoying the nectar from Krishna's lips? Because the flute is engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord. The mother and the father of the flute must be happy.
Hare Krishna. The lakes and the rivers are considered to be the mothers of the trees because the trees live simply by drinking water. So the waters of the lakes and rivers of the Vrindavan were in a happy mood, full of blooming lotus flowers, because the waters are thinking, how is it that our son, the bamboo rod, is enjoying the nectar of Krishna's lips? The bamboo trees standing by the banks of the rivers and the lakes were also happy to see their descendant so engaged in the service of the Lord, just as the person who are advanced in transcendental knowledge take pleasure in seeing their descendants engage in the service of the Lord. The trees were overwhelmed with the joy and very incessantly yielding honey, which flowed from the beehives hanging on their branches.
Hare Krishna. Another gopi spoke thus to her friends about Krishna. Dear friend, our Vrindavan is proclaiming the glories of their entire earth because this planet is glorified by the lotus footprint of the son of Devaki. Besides that, when Govinda plays his flute, the peacock immediately become mad as if they had heard the rummeling of new cloud. When all the animals and tree and plants either on the top of Govardhan hill or in the valley see the dancing of the peacock, they all stand still and listen to the transcendental sound of the flute with great attention. We think that this boon is not possible or available on any other planet. Although the gopis were village cowherd women and girls, they had extensively Vedic knowledge. Such is the effect of Vedic civilization. People in general would learn the highest truth of the Vedas simply by hearing from authoritative sources.
Another gopi said, my dear friends, just see the deer. Although they are dumb animals, they have approached the son of Maharaj Nanda, Krishna. Not only are they attracted by the dress of Krishna and Balaram, but as soon as they hear the playing of the flute, the deer, along with their husbands, offer respectful obeisances unto the Lord by looking at him with great affection. The gopis were envious of the deer because the deer were able to offer their service to Krishna along with their husbands. The gopis thought themselves not so fortunate because whenever they wanted to go to Krishna, their husbands were not very happy.
Another gopi said, my dear friends, Krishna is so nicely dressed that he appears to be the impetus to various kinds of ceremonies held by the women folk. Even the wives of the denizens of heaven become attracted after hearing the transcendental sound of his flute. Although they are traveling in the air, in their airplanes, enjoying the company of their husbands, on hearing the sound of Krishna's flute, they immediately become perturbed. Their hair is loosened and their tight belts are slackened. This means that the transcendental sound of the flute of Krishna extended to all corners of the universe. Also, it is significant that the gopis knew about the different kinds of airplanes flying in the sky.
Another gopi said to her friends, "My dear friends, the cows are also charmed as soon as they hear the transcendental sound of the flute of Krishna. It sounds to them like the pouring of nectar, and they immediately spread their long ears just to catch the liquid nectar of the flute. As for the calves, they are seen with the nipples of their mothers pressed in their mouths, but they cannot suck the milk. They remain struck with devotion, and tears glide down from their eyes, illustrating vividly how they are embracing Krishna heart to heart. These phenomena indicate that even the cows and calves in Vrindavan know how to cry for Krishna and embrace him heart to heart. Actually, the perfection of Krishna consciousness can be culminated in the shedding of tears from the eyes.
Another young gopi told her mother, "My dear mother, the birds who are all looking at Krishna playing on his flute are sitting very attentively on the branches and twigs of different trees. From their features, it appears that they have forgotten everything and are engaged only in hearing Krishna's flute. This proves that they are not ordinary birds. They are great sages and devotees. And just to hear Krishna's flute, they have appeared in Vrindavana forest as birds. Great sages and scholars are interested in Vedic knowledge, but the essence of Vedic knowledge is stated in the Bhagavad-Gita. Vedaischa sarvair agamyeva vedyo. Through the knowledge of the Vedas, Krishna has to be understood. From the behavior of these birds, it appeared that they were great scholars in Vedic knowledge and that they took to Krishna's transcendental vibration and rejected all branches of Vedic knowledge. Even the river Yamuna, very much desiring to embrace the lotus feet of Krishna after hearing the transcendental vibration of his flute, broke her fierce waves to flow very nicely with lotus flowers in her hands, just to present flowers to Mukunda with deep feeling. The scorching heat of the autumn sunshine was sometimes intolerable, and therefore the clouds in the sky appeared in sympathy about Krishna and Balarama and their boyfriends while they engaged in blowing their flutes. The clouds served as a soothing umbrella over their heads just to make friendship with Krishna.
The ever-aging girls became fully satisfied when they smeared their faces and breasts with the dust of Vrindavan, which was reddish from the touch of Krishna's lotus feet. The ever-aging girls had very full breasts and they were also very lusty. But when their lovers touched their breasts, the girls were not very much satisfied. When they came out into the midst of the forest, they saw that while Krishna was walking, some of the leaves and creepers of Vrindavan had turned reddish from the kumkum powder which fell from his lotus feet. His lotus feet are held by the gopis on their breasts, which are smeared with kumkum powder. But when Krishna travels in the Vrindavan forest with Balaram and his boyfriends, the reddish powder falls on the ground. So the lusty averaging girl were looking toward Krishna playing his flute, saw the reddish kumkum on the ground and immediately took it and smeared it over their faces and breasts. In this way they became fully satisfied, although they were not satisfied when their lovers touched their breasts. All material lust desires can be immediately satisfied if one comes in contact with Krishna consciousness.
Another gopi began to praise the unique position of Govardhana hill in this way. How fortunate in this Govardhana hill, for it is enjoying the association of Lord Krishna and Balram, who are accustomed to walking on it. Thus, Govardhana is always in touch with the lotus feet of the Lord. And because Govardhana hill is so obliged to Lord Krishna and Balram, it is supplying different kinds of fruits, roots, and herbs, as well as placing crystal water from its lakes in presentation to the Lord. The best presentation offered by Govardhan Hill, however, is newly grown grass for the cows and calves. Govardhan Hill knows how to please the Lord by pleasing his most beloved associates, the cows and the cowherd boys.
Another gopi said, everything appears wonderful when Krishna and Balram travel in the forest of Vrindavan, playing their flutes and making intimate friendship with all kinds of moving and non-moving living creatures. When Krishna and Balram plays on their transcendental flutes, the moving creatures become stunned and stop their activities, and the non-moving living creatures like trees and plants begin to shiver with ecstasy. These are the wonderful reaction to the vibration of the transcendental flutes of Krishna and Balram.
Krishna and Balaram carried binding ropes on their shoulders and in their hands, just like ordinary cowherd boys. While milking cows, cowherd boys bind the cow's hind legs with a small rope. This rope almost always hangs from the shoulders of cowherd boys, and it was not absent from the shoulders of Krishna and Balaram. In spite of their being the Supreme Person of Godhead, they played exactly like cowherd boys, and therefore everything became wonderful and attractive. While Krishna was engaged in tending the cows in the forest of Vrindavan or on Govardhan Hill, the gopis in the village were always absorbed in thinking of him and discussing his different pastimes. This is a perfect example of Krishna consciousness, to somehow or other remain always engrossed in thoughts of Krishna. The vivid example is always present in the behavior of the gopis. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya declared that no one can worship the Supreme Lord by any method which is better than the method of the gopis. The gopis were not born in very high Brahmana or Kshatriya families. They were born in the families of Vaishyas, and not in big mercantile communities, but in the families of cowherd men. They were not very well educated, although they heard all sorts of knowledge from the Brahmanas, the authorities of Vedic knowledge. The gopis' only purpose was to remain always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. Thus ends the Bhakti-Vedanta purport of the 21st chapter of Krishna, the gopis attracted by the flute.
Chapter 22. Stealing the garments of the unmarried gopi girls. According to Vedic civilization, unmarried girls from 10 to 14 years of age are supposed to worship either Lord Shiva or Goddess Durga in order to get a nice husband. But the unmarried girls of Vrindavan were already attracted by the beauty of Krishna. They were, however, engaged in the worship of Goddess Durga in the beginning of the Hemanta season, just prior to the winter season. The first month of Hemanta is Agrahayana, October-November, and at that time all the unmarried gopis of Vrindavan began to worship Goddess Durga with a vow. They first ate havishyana, a kind of food prepared by boiling together mung dal and rice without any spices or turmeric. According to Vedic injunction, this kind of food is recommended to purify the body before one enacts a ritualistic ceremony. All the unmarried gopis in Vrindavan used to daily worship goddess Katyayani. Early in the morning after taking a bath in the river Yamuna. Katyayani is another name for goddess Durga. The goddess is worshipped by preparing a doll made of sand from the bank of the Yamuna. It is recommended in the Vedic scriptures that a deity may be made from different kinds of material elements. It can be painted, made of metal, made of jewels, made of wood, earth, or stone, or it can be conceived within the heart of the worshipper. The Mayavadi philosopher takes all these forms of the deity to be imaginary, but actually they are accepted in the Vedic scriptures to be identical with either the Supreme Lord or a respective demigod.
The unmarried gopis used to prepare the deity of goddess Durga and worship it with chandan pole, garlands, incense, lamps, and all kinds of presentations, fruits, grains, and twigs of plants. After worshiping, it is the custom to pray for some benediction. The unmarried girls used to pray with great devotion to Goddess Katyayani, addressing her as follows: O Supreme Eternal Energy of the Personality of Godhead, O Supreme Mystic Power, O Supreme Controller of this material world, O Goddess, please be kind to us and arrange for our marriage with the son of Nanda Maharaj, Krishna. The Vaishnavas generally do not worship any demigods. Srila Narottam Das Thakur has strictly forbidden all worship of the demigods for anyone who wants to advance in pure devotional service. Yet the gopis who are beyond compare in their affection, did I read it wrong? I'm sorry, Prabhupada. Yet the gopis who are beyond compare in their affection for Krishna were seen to worship Durga. The worshippers of demigods sometimes mention that the gopis worship Goddess Durga, but we must understand the purpose of the gopis. Generally, people worship Goddess Durga for some material benediction. Here, the gopis pray to the goddess to become wives of Lord Krishna. The purport is that if Krishna is the center of activity, a devotee can adopt any means to achieve that goal. The gopis could adopt any means to satisfy or serve Krishna. That was the super excellent characteristic of the gopis. They worshiped Goddess Durga completely for 1 month in order to have Krishna as their husband. Every day they prayed for Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, to become their husband.
Early in the morning, the gopis used to go to the bank of the Yamuna to take a bath. They would assemble together and holding one another's hands, loudly singing of the wonderful pastimes of Krishna. It is an old system among Indian girls and women that when they take a bath in the river, they place their garments on the bank and dip into the water completely naked. The portion of the river where the girls and women bathe was strictly prohibited to any male, and this is still the system. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, knowing the minds of the unmarried young gopis, blessed them with their desired objective. They had prayed for Krishna to become their husband, and Krishna wanted to fulfill their desires.
And the end of the month, Krishna, along with his friends, appeared on the sea. Another name of Krishna is Yogeshwar, or master of all mystic powers. By practicing meditation, and the yogi can study the psychic movement of other men, and certainly Krishna could understand the desire of gopis. Appearing on the sea, Krishna immediately collected all the garments of the gopis, climbed up into a nearby tree, and with a smiling face began to speak to them. My dear girls, he said, please come here one after another and pray for your garments and then take them away. I'm not joking with you. I'm just telling the truth. I have no desire to play any joke with you. For you are tired from observing the regulative principles for 1 month by worshipping Goddess Katayani. Please do not come here all at once. Come alone. I want to see each of you in your complete beauty, for you all have thin waists. I have requested you to come alone. Now please comply.
When the girls in the water heard such joking words from Krishna, they began to look at one another and smile. They were very joyous to hear such a request from Krishna because they were already in love with him. Out of shyness, they looked at one another, but they could not come out of the water because they were naked. Due to remaining in the water for a long time, they felt cold and were shivering. Yet, upon hearing the pleasing, joking words of Govinda, their minds were perturbed with great joy. They told Krishna, "Dear son of Nanda Maharaj, please do not joke with us in that way. It is completely unjust to us. You are a very respectable boy because you are the son of Nanda Maharaj and you are very dear to us. But you should not play with joke on us because now we are all shivering from the cold water. Kindly deliver our garments immediately, otherwise we shall suffer." They then began to appeal to Krishna with great submission. "Dear Shyam Sundara," they said, "we are all your eternal servitors. Whatever you order us to do, we are obliged to perform without hesitation because we consider it our religious duty. But if you insist on putting this proposal to us, which is impossible to perform, then certainly we will have to go to Nanda Maharaj and lodge a complaint against you. If Nanda Maharaj does not take action, then we shall tell King Kansa about your misbehavior."
Upon hearing this appeal by unmarried gopis, Krishna answered, "My dear girls, if you think that you are eternal servitors and you are always ready to execute my order, then my request is that with your smiling faces, you please come here alone, one after another, and take away your garments. If you do not come here, however, and if you lodge complaints with my father, I shall not care anyway, for I know my father is old and cannot take any action against me."
He's very sure.
When the gopis saw that Krishna was strong and determined, they had no alternative but to abide by his order. One after another, they came out of the water, but because they were completely naked, they tried to cover their nakedness by placing their left hand over their pubic area. In that posture, they were all shivering. Their simple presentation was so pure that Lord Krishna immediately became pleased with them. All the unmarried gopis who prayed to Katyayani to have Krishna as their husband were thus satisfied. A woman cannot be naked before any male except her husband. The unmarried gopis desired Krishna as their husband, and he fulfilled their desire in this way. Being pleased with them, he took their garments on his shoulder and began to speak as follows. "My dear girls, you have committed a great offense by going naked in the river Yamuna. Because of this, the predominating deity of the Yamuna, Varuna Dev, has become displeased with you. Please, therefore, just touch your foreheads with folded palms and bow down before the demigod Varuna in order to be excused from this offensive act." The gopis were all simple souls, and whatever Krishna said, they took to be true. In order to be freed from the wrath of Varuna Dev, as well as to fulfill the desired end of their vows, and ultimately to please their worshipable Lord Krishna, they immediately abided by his order. Thus they became the greatest lovers of Krishna and his most obedient servitors.
Nothing can compare with the Krishna consciousness of the gopis. Actually, the gopis did not care for Varuna or any other demigod. They only wanted to satisfy Krishna. Krishna became very ingratiated and satisfied by the simple dealings of the gopis, and he immediately delivered their respective garments, one after another. Although Krishna cheated the young unmarried gopis and made them stand naked before him and enjoyed joking words with them, and although he treated them just like dolls and stole their garments, they were still pleased with him and never lodged complaints against him. This attitude of the gopis is described by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he prays, "My dear Lord, you may embrace me or trample me under your feet, or you may make me broken-hearted by never being present before me. Whatever you like, you can do, because you have complete freedom to act. But in spite of all your dealings, you are my Lord eternally, and I have no other worshipable object." This is the attitude of the gopis toward Krishna.
Lord Krishna was pleased with them, and since they all desired to have him as their husband, he told them, "My dear well-behaved gopis, I know of your desire for me, and why you worshipped Goddess Katyayani, and I completely approve of your action. Anyone whose full consciousness is always absorbed in me, even if in lust, is elevated as a fried seed cannot fructify, so any desire in connection with my loving service cannot produce any fruitive result. So in ordinary karmis, sorry, so I need to get new glasses.
There is a statement in the Brahma Samhita, Karmani nirdhati kintu cha bhakti bhajam. Everyone is bound by his spiritual activities, but the devotees, because they work completely for the satisfaction of the Lord, suffer no reaction. Similarly, the gopis' attitude toward Krishna, although seemingly lusty, should not be considered to be like the lusty desires of ordinary women. The reason is explained by Krishna himself. Activities in devotional service to Krishna are transcendental to any fruitive result. My dear gopis, Krishna continued, your desire to have me as your husband will be fulfilled because it is with this desire that you worship Goddess Katyayani. I promise you that during the next autumn season you shall be able to meet with me and you shall enjoy me as your husband.
Later, Krishna, in the company of his cowherd boyfriends, took shelter of the shade of some trees and became very happy. Thus, he addressed the inhabitants of Vrindavana, "My dear Stoka Krishna, my dear Varutapa, my dear Bhadrasena, my dear Sudama, my dear Subala, my dear Arjuna, my dear Vishala, my dear Rishabha. Just look at these most fortunate trees of Vrindavana. They have dedicated their lives to the welfare of others. Individually, they are tolerating all kinds of natural disturbances, such as hurricanes, torrents of rain, scorching heat, and piercing cold. But they are very careful to relieve our fatigue and give us shelter. My dear friends, I think they are glorified in this birth as trees. They are so careful to give shelter to others that they are like noble, highly elevated, charitable men who never deny charity to one who approaches them. No one is denied shelter by these trees. They supply various kinds of facilities to human society, such as leaves, flowers, fruit, shade, roots, bark, flavor, extracts, and fuel. They are the perfect examples of noble life. They are like a noble person who has sacrificed everything possible his body, mind, activities, intelligence, and words for the welfare of all living entities.
Thus, the Supreme Personality of Godhead walked on the bank of the Yamuna, touching the leaves of the trees and their fruits, flowers, and twigs, and praising their glorious welfare activities. Different people may accept certain welfare activities to be beneficial for human society according to their own views, but the welfare activity that can be rendered to people in general for eternal benefit. It is the spreading of the Krishna consciousness movement. Everyone should be prepared to propagate this movement. As instructed by Lord Chaitanya, one should be humbler than the grass and the ground and more tolerant than the tree. The toleration of the tree is explained by Lord Krishna himself, and those who are engaged in the preaching of Krishna consciousness should learn lessons from the teaching of Lord Krishna and Lord Chaitanya through their direct disciplic succession. While passing through the forest of Vrindavan on the bank of the Yamuna, Krishna sat down at the beautiful spot and allowed the cows to drink the cold and transparent water of the Yamuna. Being fatigued, the cowherd boys Krishna and Balaram also drank. After seeing the young gopis bathe in the Yamuna, Krishna passed the rest of the morning with the gopis. Thus ends the Bhakti-Vedanta purport of the 22nd chapter of Krishna, stealing the garments of the unmarried gopi girls. Hari.
Chapter 23, Delivering the Wives of the Brahmanas who perform sacrifices. The morning passed, and the cowherd boys were very hungry because they had not eaten breakfast. They immediately approached Krishna and Balram and said, Dear Krishna and Balram, you are both all powerful. You can kill many demons. But today we are much afflicted with hunger, and this is disturbing us. Please arrange for something that will mitigate our hunger. Requested in this way by their friends, Lord Krishna and Balram arranged to show compassion to certain wives of Brahmanas who were performing sacrifices. These wives were great devotees of Lord Krishna, and Krishna took his opportunity to bless them. He said, My dear friends, please go to the house of Brahmanas nearby. They are now engaged in performing the Vedic sacrifices known as Angirasa, for they desire elevation to the heavenly planets. All of you please go to them. Then Lord Krishna warned his friends, These Brahmanas are not Vaishnavas. They cannot even chant our names, Krishna and Balram. They are very busy in chanting of the Vedic hymns. Although the purpose of Vedic knowledge is to find me, but because they are not attracted by the names of Krishna and Balram, you had better not ask them for anything in my name. Better ask for some charity in the name of Balram.
Charity is generally given to high class of Brahmanas, but Krishna and Balram did not appear in Brahman family. Balram was known as the son of Vasudev, a Kshatriya, and Krishna was known in Vrindavan as the son of Nand Maharaj, who was a Vaishya. Neither belonged to the Brahmana community. Therefore, Krishna considered that the Brahmana engaged in performing sacrifice might not be induced to give charity to Kshatriya and Vaishya. But at least if you utter the name of Balram, they may prefer to give in charity to a Kshatriya rather than to me, because I am only a Vaishya. Being thus ordered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the boys went to the Brahmanas and began to ask for some charity. They approached them with folded hands and fell down on the ground to offer respect. O earthly gods, kindly hear us, who are ordered by the Lord Krishna and Balaram. We hope you know them both very well, and we wish you all good fortune. Krishna and Balaram are tending cows nearby, and we have accompanied them. We have come to ask for some food from you. You are all Brahmanas and knower of religious principle. And if you think that you should give us charity, then give us some food, and we shall all eat along with Krishna and Balaram. You are the most respectable Brahmanas within the human society, and you are expected to know all the principle of religious procedure.
Although the boys were village boys and were not expected to be learned in all the Vedic principles of religious ritual, they hinted that because of their association with Krishna and Balaram, they knew all these principles. By addressing the Brahmanas as knowers of all religious principles, the boys expressed the point of view that when the Supreme Person of Godhead, Krishna and Balaram, were asking for food, the Brahmanas should immediately deliver some without hesitation. Because as stated in the Bhagavad-Gita, one should perform yajna, sacrifices, only for the satisfaction of Vishnu. The boys continued, Lord Vishnu, as Krishna and Balaram, is standing waiting, and you should immediately deliver whatever food you have in your stock. They also explained to the Brahmanas when food is to be accepted and when it is not to be accepted. Generally, the Vaishnavas, or pure devotees of the Lord, do not take part in ordinary sacrificial performances, but they know very well the ceremonials called Diksha, Pashu Samsta, and Satramani. One is permitted to take food after the procedure of Diksha and before the animal sacrifice ceremony, and the Sautramani, or ceremony in which liquors are also offered. The boys said, we can take your food at the present stage of your ceremony, for now it will not be prohibited, so you can deliver us the food.
Although the companions of Lord Krishna and Balaram were simple cowherd boys, they were in a position to dictate even to the high-class Brahmanas engaged in the Vedic rituals of sacrifice. But the smarter Brahmanas, who were simply sacrificial-minded, could not understand the dictation of the transcendental devotees of the Lord. They could not even appreciate the begging of the Supreme Lord, Krishna and Balaram. Although they heard all the arguments on behalf of Krishna and Balaram, they did not care for them, and they refused to speak to the boys. Despite being highly elevated in the knowledge of Vedic sacrificial rites, all such non-devotee Brahmanas, although they think of themselves as very highly elevated, are ignorant, foolish persons. All their activities are childish because they do not know the purpose of the Vedas, as it is explained in the Bhagavad-Gita, to understand Krishna. In spite of their advancement in Vedic knowledge and rituals, they do not understand Krishna. Therefore, their knowledge of the Vedas is useless. Lord Chaitanya, therefore, gave his valuable opinion that although a person may not be born in a Brahmana family, if he knows Krishna or the science of Krishna consciousness, he is more than a Brahmana and is quite fit to become a spiritual master.
There are various details to be observed in the performance of sacrifices. They are known as Desha, the place, Kala, the time, Pritabdaya, the different detailed paraphernalia, mantra or hymns, tantra, scriptured evidences, Agni, fire, Ritvik, the learned performers of sacrifices, and Devata, the demigods, Jagananda, the performer of the sacrifices. My glasses.
Kratu, the sacrifice itself, and Dharma, the procedure. All these are for satisfying Krishna. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad-Gita that he is the actual enjoyer of all sacrifices because he is directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Supreme Absolute Truth beyond the conception of speculation of the material senses. He is present just like an ordinary human boy, but for persons who identify themselves with the body, it is very difficult to understand him. The Brahmanas were very much interested in the comforts of the material body and elevation to the higher planetary residences called Swargavas. They were therefore completely unable to understand the position of Krishna. When the boys saw that the Brahmanas would not reply to them, even with a simple yes or no, they became very much disappointed. They then returned to Lord Krishna and Balram and explained everything that had happened. After hearing their statement, the Supreme Personality of Godhead smiled. He told them that they should not be sorry for being refused by the Brahmanas because that is the way of begging. He convinced them that one who is engaged in collecting or begging should not think that he will be successful everywhere. He may be unsuccessful in some places, but that should not be the cause of disappointment. Lord Krishna then asked all the boys to go again, but this time to the wives of those Brahmanas engaged in sacrifices. He also informed them that these wives were great devotees. They are always absorbed in thinking of us. Go there and ask for some food in my name and the name of Balram, and I am sure that they will deliver you as much food as you desire.
Carrying out Krishna's order, the boys immediately went to the wives of the Brahmanas. They found the wives sitting inside the Brahmanas' house. They were very beautifully decorated with ornaments. After offering them all respectful obeisances, the boys said, "Dear mothers, please accept our humble obeisances and hear our statement. May we inform you that Lord Krishna and Balarama are nearby. They have come here with the cows, and you may know also that we have come here under their instructions. All of us are very hungry, therefore we have come to you for some food. Please give us something to eat for Krishna, Balarama, and ourselves."
Immediately upon hearing this, the wives of the Brahmanas became anxious for Krishna and Balaram. These reactions were spontaneous. They did not have to be convinced of their importance of Krishna and Balaram. Immediately upon hearing their names, they became very eager to see them. Being advanced by thinking of Krishna constantly, they are performing the greatest form of mystic meditation. All the wives then became very busily engaged in filling up different pots with nice food due to the performance of the sacrifice. The various foods were all very palatable. After collecting a feast, they prepared to go Krishna, their most beloved object, exactly in the way rivers flow to the sea.
For a long time, the wives had been eager to see Krishna. However, when they were preparing to leave home to go to see him, their husbands, fathers, sons, and relatives asked them not to go. But the wives did not comply. When a devotee is called by the attraction of the Krishna, he does not care for bodily ties. The women entered the forest of Vrindavan on the bank of the Yamuna, which was verdant forest. They saw Krishna and Balram engage in tending the cows along with their affectionate boyfriends.
The Brahmana's wives saw Krishna with blackish complexion, wearing a garment that glittered like a gold. He wore a nice garland of forest flower and peacock feather on his head. He was also painted with a minerals found in Vrindavana, and he looked exactly like a dancing actor on theatrical stage. They saw him resting on a hand on the shoulder of his friend, and in his other hand he was holding a lotus flower. His ears were decorated with lilies. He wore marks of tilaka, and he was smiling charmingly. With their very eyes, the wives of the Brahmanas saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead, of whom they had heard so much, who was so dear to them, and in whom their minds were always absorbed. Now they saw him eye to eye and face to face, and Krishna entered within their hearts through their eyes.
Within themselves, they began to embrace Krishna to their heart's content, and the distress of separation was mitigated immediately. They were just like great sages who, by their advancement of knowledge, merge into existence of the Supreme. As the super soul living in everyone's heart, Lord Krishna could understand their minds. They had come to him despite all the protests of their relatives, fathers, husbands, and brothers, and despite all the duties of household affairs. They came just to see him, who is their life and soul. They were exactly following Krishna's instructions in the Bhagavad-Gita. One should surrender to him, giving up all varieties of occupational and religious duties. He therefore began to speak to them, smiling very magnificently. It should be noted in this connection that when Krishna entered into the wives' hearts, and when they embraced him and felt the transcendental bliss of being merged with him, the Supreme Lord Krishna did not lose his identity, nor did the individual wives lose theirs. The individuality of both the Lord and the wives remained, yet they felt oneness in existence. When a lover submits to his lover without any pinch of personal consideration, that is called oneness. Lord Chaitanya has taught us this feeling of oneness in his Shastastika. Krishna may act freely, doing whatever he likes, but the devotee should always be in oneness or in agreement with his desires. That oneness was exhibited by the wives of the Brahmanas in their love for Krishna.
So that concludes our 1 hour of reading Krishna book to Srila Prabhupada. My dear devotees, we'll continue next week. And as we always do, let us offer our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti-Vedanta Swaminichi Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vicharane Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskachade Shatarane, and to each other Panchakalpatarubhyascha Pipasindubhyascha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Krishna Bol Jai Srila Prabhupada Shri Gauda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare